All right, so we're back in the art room today. It's been a few days, but I'm excited because I have an idea that I want to test out today. I'm going to be experimenting a little bit, trying something different. As you guys have seen, my portraits and figures, I try to blend in like a little bit of realism, kind of this old school classical style with like some abstract elements, combine chaos and calm. So today, because I'm going to add a little more detail, I am using Bristol, a smooth Bristol paper. And as always, I am protecting my lungs here. So I'm wearing a mask. You guys can probably see all the floaties just kind of drifting around. Really got to get these edges, because sometimes the charcoal powder gets kind of trapped or stuck on these edges. All right, I think that's good for now. Step one, or my step one, is to start with kind of an idea as far as like shapes goes. So this is going to be a portrait kind of figure drawing. This is where my figure's face is going to be. Just a little bit above halfway's. This drawing might take me a little longer than like the landscape drawings that I've been doing. We'll see if I can get this done in less than an hour. We'll put her chin here and neck, down here. As you guys have seen, I like adding these kind of cloudy, puffy kind of elements in my drawings. And for me, they can represent a lot of different things, but I guess for me, it just kind of represents maybe a state of mind or thoughts. A lot of my artworks will have that, these cloudy kind of shapes. It can also be like rawness, I know like a lot of the clothing that I put on my figures is not really like clothes. It's these kind of like puffy, almost like cotton, like raw cotton fibers. So I'm just looking for different areas that I can kind of lighten up. And so I'm just getting some basic shapes down, and then I'll, just as usual, I'll just start like adding more and more layers. So I think this is going to be one of the first videos that I put out where I'm going to attempt to show my full process or the full drawing. For the most part, just kind of filling in areas that I feel needs some white. So there's a lot of white there, so I'm gonna bring some down here. These puffy clouds or clothes. Actually, yeah, these are gonna be kind of like clothes, or what's covering the model, the figure. This style of drawing, subtractive drawing, is it's definitely different. I feel like, I don't know, for me it just feels easier to get creative. I like making my portraits look like they're almost like floating. For me, it's they're not supposed to be at any specific place, anywhere. It's just, they're supposed to represent more like a feeling or a state of mind, so they're kind of nowhere. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I have like dreams or even try to like come up with something in my head, they're never like super detailed. It's like this kind of vague image, and I think it's just a combination of like an image and maybe a feeling. So yeah, that's kind of what I try to accomplish when I draw these. I'm gonna want my light source to come down from like this direction. I guess I can line this up, this area, and that'll make it easier for me to figure out where the light's coming from. I've been wanting to do a kind of like a Dia de los Muertos, like a Day of the Dead kind of theme portrait, so maybe the next one. But for now, for today, it's gonna be my experimental drawing. We'll see how it comes out. I like those sounds. I don't know if my mic picks up on them. They're like these little crackling sounds from charcoal being kind of like trapped between the paper and this board. And I'm gonna work on the darks right now. Just like super rough, not detailed. So I like making my figures, like their hair, super just crazy and wild, you know, not combed or to any specific style of the current times. So this person is gonna have some wild hair, just crazy wild hair. My very first real exposure to like art, I guess it was in an art museum that I went to, and I like, it was mostly, there's a lot of old school kind of classical paintings. So that was definitely like my first love when it came to art. And then I remember going through that area and just being amazed by these massive, like haunting looking paintings that looked like ghosts. They just looked like they were alive. And then as I'm walking through this art museum, mind you, I was probably in 5th grade, 6th grade. So I was probably 11 years old, I think. And so I'm walking through this museum, and then I come across the more like modern stuff, contemporary type art. And there was a lot of like just abstract type artwork, and that had me confused, like going from the old school classical paintings to this section was just like completely different. And initially I didn't really understand abstract type artworks, you know, because I'm like, okay, so a bunch of random lines and paint splatters and all that. And I feel like most people probably don't when they look at stuff like that. And it wasn't until like years later, you know, I was like older and had already been, you know, painting and drawing for some time, that it started to make more sense to me, I guess, that while some artworks will paint an image or a scene and it'll be a little more obvious as far as what they're trying to tell you or what the image is, abstract is kind of more, you know, just leaves it up to you, to your imagination, and I don't know, to see what it makes you feel. And I think going back to when I was younger, it definitely made me feel confused, you know, as far as like the artwork itself, like what's going on, what does it mean, and why. Like I remember just looking at them up close and just, it's cool to look at, but I just couldn't figure out why. You know, maybe the artist had an idea, but they just kind of went with the flow, maybe just whatever they were feeling. So this portrait here, this figure, she's got some really crazy hair. Still not a lot of details, still blocking in. There's gonna be a lot of contrast in this one for sure. All right, so now the fun part. And I always start with the hair when I start smearing. It's normally like the darkest areas of my drawings. So I've been experimenting with both Bristol and Strathmore 400 paper. And I think I'm liking the Bristol, smooth Bristol a little more for this stuff. It's just smoother and it's easier for me to work with. I feel like a good part of my drawing process is just smearing. If you've taken any art classes, they'll typically tell you not to use your fingers. But I think that's probably more because you lose some control. You know, they won't look as smooth or as nice as you like it to. So I get asked like all the time, maybe I can talk about this here, about commissions, if I do commissions and I don't. I've done commissions in the past, and this might just be me, but they very rarely are enjoyable for me. I feel like I lose a lot of creative freedom in my experience when I do commissions. And that's because as much as whoever I do the work for, you know, as much as they tell me, oh, you know, feel free to do whatever you want, however, do it in your style. At the end of the day, they might have a certain expectation. If it's just not to their standard, or even more so if it doesn't look exactly like who they want me to draw, then they're just not happy with it, you know. So for me, it's just not worth all the extra hassle. I'd rather just draw what I want, and then the ones that I like, or the ones that people like, I just list for sale or make prints of them. There's different ways you can draw the face. I normally start with the eyes, and what I do, since I've been drawing portraits for some time, is I'll just rub my finger on the dark area here, and I start kind of blocking in the dark areas of where the eyes are going to be. And I'm just kind of like slowly building this up. And I know I drew this hard line here, but it's not. It's going to be pretty kind of smooth because it's her chin, and then it goes down to her neck area. I start blocking in all these dark areas first. And I can always just adjust as I'm going. You know, if something seems off, if the nose seems too high. So we know our light source, as it says, coming kind of from here. So there's going to be some shadows here in the cheek area, the neck. So I got to smoothen this out. So yeah, this is like a very loose way of drawing faces. Almost has like this ghostly kind of look. Just kind of doing a rough sketch. So I'm going to put her eyebrows here. And I can always adjust these too. We know our light source is up here, so it's going to be hitting her head, and then eyebrows. This is going to be slightly darker. I think if I wanted a very accurate portrait, I'd definitely do like the Loomis method. I'm still working these shadows till it looks like it makes sense. This pencil I definitely recommend. Wolf's Carbon. Yeah, this is a good brand. This is a good pencil. One of my favorites for sure. Just making some adjustments here. Little shadow down here. Not too much. I do need to start working on these lips here though. So there's this little shadowy area underneath our lips. So I guess considering our light sources up here. So I like doing that before I do draw out the lower lip. We're gonna darken her lower lip a little bit too. And right here, this shadow area is like too dark. I kind of want this to blend in softly up here. So I'm gonna come back to the face in a bit because I wanna add a hand down here. Somewhere here. And I'll just start with like a super basic shape of a hand. Try to get it to scale. Go back to my area here. I like doing this using the hair or the dark areas as almost like a palette because I can always darken it up again. But I know there's going to be, her wrist is going to be slightly bent. I'm going to add some shadows here. And you guys are probably going to see me jump around a lot. I'll like step back, look at an area that I feel like needs work on that, come back to other areas. There's some areas that I need a little darker. Like here. So I'm just like, kind of go back and forth and just add things here and there that I feel like it needs. So I guess this is a good time to add my little experiment, what I've been wanting to try out. And it's gonna be one of those things where I just don't know how it's gonna look, but you know, I gotta take risks, I gotta take some leaps. And so I was talking earlier about my experiences at my first art museum when I was younger. And I mentioned like abstract and random shapes and lines and things like that. So for my figure here, I'm gonna draw her like if she was the canvas. I'm also thinking abstract because for the longest, I've always wanted to combine the two, realism, abstract. Might be one of those things where people say I ruined it, but you know, I won't know until I try it. On social media, I'll see posts or even comments. People are asking like, how do I find my art style? And I think experimentation is definitely important. This might be a while, so I'm gonna probably cut and jump back and forth between these. She's just gonna have dots like everywhere, like these little. And I gotta consider where like skin might be stretching and moving around. So I'm gonna add a little more details to the hand here. Shouldn't be too bad because there's not a lot of my fingers, the knuckles are kind of bent a little bit, so. And I will leave some of these areas kind of just vague. And I'm not gonna add too much detail to this to the hand because there's not much like showing. It's just the knuckles here. I'm gonna have this finger kind of bent over here. I don't want to line it too much. So I was trying to complete this drawing in like less than an hour, or an hour or less, but I didn't. Definitely underestimated how much time I was going to spend on this. Going on an hour and a half, I think. And these little polka dots, they do take some time. This is in a more shadowy area, so I'm going to make these darker. Almost done with these spots. So I think that's it for the spots. Now I'm going to break up this clothes, I guess you could say. I don't know if I'd call it clothes. It's just the stuff that's covering her here. So I got my kneaded eraser again, and I'm just gonna do like tiny little circles, like just very lightly, to give it this kind of fluffy look that I'm trying to achieve. And then I'll just step back once in a while and just see what areas need to be worked. I just got to keep breaking up this area. You guys can probably see my earlier stuff where I was trying to draw fabric, but not be too detailed. And then just kind of slowly evolved into these kind of cloud things. This is like the easier part too, because faces are always going to be the hardest part. By hard, I mean just the more time consuming part, a little more challenge to it. Needed my eraser so I can lift some more charcoal. Just in a few areas. Put some of that material up here too. This area can be brighter a little bit, I guess. Maybe the sunlight or my light up here can touch up these areas. I'm trying to blur these lines, these edges. I want them to look just really soft. I guess that's the other challenging part is I have so many, edges and solid kind of lines, I guess, some very bold areas. So trying to find some balance between my soft lines and soft areas and some of these dark, bold areas. I feel like I need to break this up a little bit, this whole area. So I think what I'm going to do to make it look like it's lighter is I'm going to add some more darker areas down there to try to break up this area because it's just looking kind of flat. I'm going to come up here and work on my puffy cotton stuff up here. Since these are a little higher, they kind of almost look like clouds, but they're going to be like intertwining with the hair. I think that contrast between the hair up here, it's going to make it look nice, like it's illuminated. All right, So there is some areas that I want to add more, like darken up. And I don't know if I, just from rubbing on it, just lightened it up, or some of these areas, it's supposed to be her hair kind of coming down. So whenever I see like these large areas that are just kind of these big, like this area here is just this big solid area, but it looks flat. I'll try to break it up. You know, in this case, I'm just adding some darker areas. So I'm trying not to overwork this, because the more I keep going, the more detailed it'll be, and that's not what I'm going for. And this is, I know, the part that some people don't like. My random squiggly lines. Part of right here, but it looks like this solid mass. So I'm gonna break this up a little bit. And I have my mono 0 for this here. Which gives me a little more control, a little more precision. I think I'm gonna add some hair coming down here, but it's gonna be messy still. I'm pretty happy with the composition. But before I show this off, I gotta take off this tape. All right, so I took a gamble on this one, experimented a little bit, but yeah, I like the way it came out. This one's definitely going on my wall.